Simone Chun, thank you so much for your patience. We're running a little bit behind. Simone's going to be speaking about how South Koreans defeated or are continuing to defeat a coup non-violently. She is a researcher and activist focusing on inter-Korean relations. She's on the Korea Policy Institute Board of Directors and the Advisory Board for CODEPINK. Simone, thank you for being here, and please take it away. Oh, you're muted. Oh, still muted. There we go.
Okay, so I do have a PowerPoint slide that I want to share. Seems to be not working, so I will just a little bit. Oh, there you go. Let's see, this one, share. Is my slide shown, shared?
Yep, we got it.
Let me see, I can find the slideshow mode.
Yep. We
Oh,
see your whole desktop. Oh, there we go.
Okay, so as you know, so this is a story about happening right now. It is the title of my talk is Yoon Suk-yeol's Rogue Insurrectionism. And as you know, on December 3rd, 2024, South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol, his far-right President Yoon Suk-yeol, launched a failed coup against his own government. It was obviously an assault on South Korea's democracy. But what happened on that day was not just an isolated event. It was the culmination of escalating militarism and Koreans' vigorous people's resistance, and also far-right extremism. And so, moreover, this crisis is being emboldened by Yoon's deep alignment with Washington's far-right coalition. So what I want to do is, because I had a lot of analysis about the geopolitical context, but for the theme of our discussion, I'll focus on the movement side, how Koreans have successfully stopped the martial law and the illegal insurrection. The answer is the light revolution, what is referred to as a light revolution. So how South Koreans stopped Yoon Suk-yeol's attempted coup. So as you recall, about December 14th, which is about 10 days later, about 2 million South Koreans, they're bearing sticks and candles and the beacon. They all formed a luminous sea around the National Assembly to demand the impeachment of Yoon Suk-yeol, who led the illegal martial law. And so it was successfully impeached. And however, at this point, you might have heard from the news that after more than 100 days of impeachment, and still the South Korean, we're waiting for the final stage where the Constitutional Court will, do ruling on the National Assembly's impeachment. So that's where we're waiting for. And most likely, it is expected that by next week, the ruling will come, and we'll see whether Yoon Suk-yeol will be removed from office. So that's where we're now. But nevertheless, this is, so in other words, this is not, we don't have a complete victory yet. We are in a waiting right now. So, but this is in a way, a revolution that is taking place with a lot of twists and turns. And, really millions of Koreans, including myself, we haven't been able to really, we have an incredible amount of stress and as part of this ongoing crisis. I think earlier, Professor Chomsky raised this question about, how do we fight back? I thought about maybe I will kind of organize my talk around that question. So how did the Koreans fight back? I would call this is creating almost permanent, standing, peaceful army, democratic resistance, ranging from 1 million to 2 million. So what I call this particular one, and when we impeached Park Geun-hye Last time it was called the Candlelight Revolution, again, symbolizing the peaceful revolution. This time we call the Revolution of Light. What is it? It is a broad-based coalition. Labor unions, as you may remember, Korean Confederation of Trade Union, that is one of the largest trade unions, who provides the organizational and also resources, disciplined movement. So, we talked about here earlier about, mutual aid and all different kinds of way of organizing. So what I thought maybe what I can contribute to our discussion from Korea's experience is the importance of trade union, the importance of organized labor, workers, and also in Korea expanding now not only the traditional organized unions, but also not the union of irregular workers, part-timers. And there's a farmers, students, this linking to this now growing, this is a powerful youth movement. Many of them, the number one concern right now is, the unemployment. We have this massive, really pandemic crisis of youth unemployment. And there's a women's rights group. What you might heard about this new latest sort of Korea's democracy 2.0 is this incredible mobilization of women, especially young women. We're talking about actually from middle school, high school, and college women in the 20s and 30s. So the women's rights groups, and also of course the opposition lawmakers who actually contribute to the impeachment of, and more importantly, overseas Koreans, including myself, who joined in solidarity, and moreover, Americans. Korea has such a, and one thing that I feel really amazing about being America is that having gotten to incredible American peace activists who have been fighting who have been showing solidarity for Korea's peace and democracy for decades. So all those made the broad-based coalition, the Revolution of Light. So I want to say, despite some setback, we were able to rescind the illegal martial law. We were able to impeach law. And at this point, the Constitutional Court is now tasked with confirming the impeachment and made a fierce demand for democratic accountability and national sovereignty. Now, I earlier talked about creating almost permanent people's standing army, democratic, peaceful standing army. Now, 1 million. This was just last weekend, right? Because we're still waiting for the impeachment, the court's decision, right? 1 million. These are not ad hoc groups of people. These are organized. Some of them are spontaneous. And so what I want to do is to show, because we talk about how do we organize? How do you organize? So what I want to show is really the faces, the images. Who are they? What was the demand? This one you will see a lot of flags. So what you can see that it's not really, and usually you see the patriotic Korean flag. It's not that, a little bit different 21st century movement. Organization will bring all their flags, different flag. And then there is some of the flags will look like, about women's groups and then animal rights group, right? So you can really see that this very diverse interests that, working together. Now, and I have actually included this slide because I also have been working very closely with the Professor Chomsky, giving this kind of context. Not only Koreans are fighting against this, in this particular case, the illegal coup, but also what it is, the Koreans right now, the context, geopolitical context that shaped this, created this incredible assault on democracy, which is what basically the Korea has been under more than 70 years. We are in a state of war. Korean War has never ended. We're still, working to get a peace treaty. And you can only see right now, moreover, on the Biden administration, Korea has been literally, this is as Professor Chun, a webinar we organized, is that Korean Peninsula is basically in the midst of U.S. trembling to war and etc. So in that context, that because of this context, it is so more important that how Koreans have been able to mobilize so peacefully. And along with that is, of course, this constant threat, 250 days per year, U.S.-led war drills. Right? Imagine now in the United States you have 28,500 foreign troops occupying next to White House, and then you have 250. They do 250 days of war game. How can you have democracy? Now, that being said, though, on the night of martial law, you will see all people did all so looking at the as I earlier pointed out, that the broad base of this coalition. This was looking at the Korean Confederation Trade Union. They try to appeal now more to the young people, right? And try to expand their traditional base. This is looking at just as I pointed out, the 1 million Koreans just last weekend. Right? They have not stopped despite all this onslaught from the far-right coalition, violent coalition. They have still managed to have disciplined organization and inspiring mobilization. Again, I want to show you this. Those who know Korean, this one says, red is the color of revolution. And there's somewhere it says this is for persons. Something about cats, people who love cats. And then there's unions. There's all these different regions from all works of Korea. So they all come together. In other words, it also showed how the plural, right, diversity of issues, and they all coming together to demand justice and to defend the democracy. Again, more images, as you can see. As you hear, I want to show that again, going back to the importance of the alliance of citizens and non-governmental organization, grassroots, also the very powerful trade union. This one is electronic workers organization, service workers organization. And what is it? What are we going? So this is the 우리가 만날 다시 만난 세계. This is the famous K-pop song. This is basically so all together we're gonna go to a new world together. Right? We're gonna go. First, we're going to actually arrest you, and also we're going to disband the ruling far-right party, right? So we're all going to go together into the new world. And continuing some of those. And this one was, as you can see, it's as hard, as so depressing, it's so just it's almost like psychological torture, Koreans on torture, but nevertheless, there is, because this movement is going to be, it's going to be long, right? This is not going to be just temporary thing. So there is some sort of, you still have to to have, to experience joy, laughter, etc. This is a way to all-night camping and snow, where to arrest you, right? So we actually did arrest you. And moreover, overseas Koreans like me, right? So here's the Seattle, South Korean President Yoon out, Seattle rally. And we're also contesting this far right, this Republican member of Congress from California, who is saying that those whose Koreans are pursuing impeachment, they are subordinate. They're puppet of North to China's Communist Party. So Koreans have protested against her. We visited her office, and we're saying, stop disrespecting Koreans. And her name is, I hope maybe you guys can also pay attention to what she's doing in the Congress, Young Kim. And there's Chicago, New York, Boston, Germany, again Germany, Japan, Sydney, Australia, and France, Paris. So all these are voluntary. Nobody, there's no order from the top. And I thought this poster is perfect. This is from people, Korean Americans living in Ireland. It said, impeach Yoon. We do not want a dictator, period. He must go. So that has been our demand. That being said, as I earlier pointed out, we are still waiting. Constitutional Court, those justices who are not elected, who are appointed, are taking, for some reason, very long time to deliver when the case is so clear cut, right? So they're, again, camping all night. These people doing hunger strike. Just it was last weekend, right? Hunger strike. These are the Korean artists who've been blacklisted, right? They're doing hunger strike in front of, right? This is the Korean Artists Association, right? Hunger strike. So in order to wrap up a little bit, so I want to show this the faces of people who are actually mobilizing and actually organizing and protesting. So what is it? What is the big picture? This is about. It's not just about Yoon's personal act. This was about Yoon, who has been promoted by Biden, by Washington for the last 3 years. He was considered the Washington's perfect partner. It's called in Korea, known as the Biden's man. He was a champion of democracy. And he was even, Kurt Campbell even said he should be nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. And there we have, what did he did this coup? It was a month-long, thorough preparation. There's a shocking level of brutality, repression on a massive scale, and enabled right now sustaining by transnational US-South Korea far-right coalition. And was Yoon's idea just his own? No, it is perfectly aligned with the Washington's Indo-Pacific propaganda. In fact, he just borrowed from Washington's McCarthy era playbook, basically saying, whoever disagree with me, they are pro-communist. They are anti-state forces. He weaponizing Cold War paranoia for personal and political gain. And all those talk about Washington's 70-year ironclad commitment. If you look at the other way to look at it, this is what they call it is iron-fisted dominance of Korean politics and independence by Washington. And so this is, so in other words, I think when you look at the case of countries, like Korea that has been under US domination, you cannot explain only the country's domestic endogenous variable. What it leads to also is that we really need Americans' alliance, solidarity. Now, although I said that we had this great democratic revolution still ongoing, but still there are very concrete obstacles. Those are structural forces of militarism. As long as US is planning for war against China in Northeast Asia, there's not going to be, its democracy is very difficult to maintain. And there's also right now, what this new phenomena is that Yoon really emboldening far-right groups, transnational South Korea, US far-right coalition, heavily funded, massively funded. And so this is something that a little bit we have to really pay attention to. So the bottom line with the call to action, reclaiming democracy and sovereignty, and US-led war games in the Korean Peninsula. 255 days of war game must end. Challenge US-led anti-China. This is global geopolitical issue. Anti-China, anti-North Korean provocation. Advocate peaceful coexistence with North Korea. Confront far-right extremism and political violence, which we have right now here in the United States, and Korea is going to have it, and support South Korea's pro-democracy movement, and oppose US-backed militarism, far-right and authoritarian alliances. So therefore, I really, at this, a crucial moment, I really plead that Americans, please, stay with us. Please help us to keep our courage and also your courage against democratic forces, not only in Korea, but also in the United States, but all over the world. And I want to end a couple of images. I think the Koreans, something very unique about Korean movement, mobilization is that we have this is generational activism. It's persistent. And also against the enormous amount of force. So here's this picture of a grandma who's she's protesting against the US deployment of THAAD in this tiny, small rural village. She's And so I just wanted to share this image to show the resilience, the persistence of Koreans' resistance to create, not only the ultimate goal is to create hope and courage, not just, seize power, that's it, and move on. And here is this is the, I thought this is the artist version of a Korean. This is a young girl who is staying all night, young women protesting, to defend the constitution, democracy. And the Korean word says, imagining a new Republic of Korea. And my final thought, because the theme is nonviolence. Well, Martin Luther King Jr., this is the Maya Lin, Chinese American artist who was the designer of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Law. So this is her designing of a civil rights memorial law. She says here, until justice, quoting Martin Luther King Jr., until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. And I think today, right now, I'm not in the most optimistic moment, still waiting. Who knows, next week, Yoon may come back. But even if the worst thing happened, we're not going to stop. We're never going to give up because as Martin Luther King Jr. said, we have to have a faith in it. Right? Justice will roll down like water, and then someday we're going to create this mighty stream that's going to be help us inspire and forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Simone. We have so many questions. That was amazing. First off, the photos, so inspiring. All those tents, it reminds me of Occupy, where I really got my start with activism. So thank you for sharing those photos. That was amazing. And then the MLK quote at the end, Norman, it will be quick to remind us of, he talks about the madness of militarism and the demonic suction tube of militarism that takes good from communities and sends it away for war and death. I got lots of questions for you. People do. Let's start with the light revolution. And if anyone has to go, feel free. We're gonna try to do some questions now, but we're way over time. So if anyone has to go, please feel free. I guess quickly, whose idea was the light revolution? Everyone showing up with lights. Was it their own? Did everyone bring their own? Did a group organize it? When Occupy started, it started with an advertisement that just had a date and it said, bring a tent. Did they say bring a light? What happened? How'd that happen?
Those were actually, I think it just started, and Korea just, it's still very homogeneous, a small country. Quickly things can become very, popular. And actually this one was the young people, especially BTS fan, that's how they started. And then, and this, before we used the candlelight, but this time we brought this kind of light stick because it's easier and also long lasting. And so there's no kind of, it's like a movement. It became a, very popular thing. So there's no, it didn't say, opposition party said, okay, everyone bring their light stick. No, that didn't happen. Yeah.
That's amazing. So the maybe older adult organizers and organizations kind of let the youth lead, and they said, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's so cool. Could the resistance have succeeded or continue to succeed since it's not over yet?
Mm-hmm.
Could it have gotten to where it is now without the labor federations?
My answer will be, I want to say no, for two reasons. One was that, the last impeachment during Candlelight Revolution, there was also, it was very powerful because of the labor unions involvement. And Korean labor union, there are two labor union, trade union. One is more sort of conservative. The other is more progressive, Korean Confederation of Trade Union. The labor union itself, it grew out of the against the dictator. So it has this historic, that's the roots of, protesting against dictator and fighting for democracy. And there's so many people, workers, who literally, who died, self-molested, died of, doing hunger strike and all kinds of sacrifice. So I would say my answer will be no. And more importantly, next week, the Korean Confederate Trade Unions are saying that they're going to go on general strike if the Constitutional Court does not come up with the ruling by March 27th. So there's going to be a general strike, nationwide strike, no cooperation. So we have waited it, enough. So that's so. So what the labor union does is that they, again, as I pointed out, they provide. They have a history. They have a discipline, and actually, I wrote the dissertation about actually the rise of a new left party in Korea, and so I had extensive interviews with the trade unions. But it's really excellently important, especially this the neoliberal assault on workers. It is so important that unions get involved, especially finding that solidarity between unions and grassroots other civic organizations.
Sure. Two quick questions. Well, they're not going to be quick. They're just two questions. You talked about Yoon attempting to, or he's provoking conflict with North Korea to justify martial law, right?
Yes.
That sounds a lot like Netanyahu continuing the war to gain domestic support so he doesn't get tossed out. It also sounds a lot like Trump arresting Mahmoud Khalil and some of these other people who have been arrested and using, they're supporting the enemy. I guess how do you see us resisting that in the US? How did you guys resist that? Or not you, you're in the United States, but how did Koreans resist that there?
You know what? I think that our case, literally, I gotta tell you, I think there was who raised the question, should we start impeachment? Actually, we have the candlelight revolution visual. Actually, it's happening every week, the weekly candlelight national. Sometimes it can be only maybe 2,000 people, or so it varies. But started even day one of Yoon's inauguration. Even then, right? We didn't think of, he will be impeached. But so in other words, what is important is that no matter what happened, you have this, you create this what do you call the routine, and also so that the movement never dies. So in that sense, I guess the start right now, even contesting Trump or any other dictator, you have to start right now. You cannot start the opportune moment. And you cannot start until maybe next congressional election. No, you have to start even literally tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I got one. I'm going to try to do one last question. I know we're so over time, everybody. I'm so sorry. It sounded like you said the U.S. played a role in how am I going to do this? Yoon was supported largely by U.S. militarism, and that is the right wing and the Democrat, right? So you have this support for U.S. militarism that leads to him calling martial law, and ultimately the people really standing up to them. Did that leave a bad taste in South Koreans' mouths towards the United States, or are South Koreans inspired by U.S. protesters? How did that relationship change between South Koreans and how they feel about America? Were we inspiring to them to say, "Hey, go out there and protest," or were they like, "Why did these Americans cause this?" I guess that's what I'm trying to get to.
I think if you look at the media report, you will not definitely look at Americans. Still, Koreans. If you look at polls, 7% Koreans, support U.S. Korea alliance, and Koreans have a positive, view of America, etc., etc. But at the same time, if you look at the other poll, also 70% of Koreans against the Yoon's foreign policy, that completely, he subordinated to U.S. geopolitical interest. And 70% of Koreans want rapprochement with North Korea, do not want war. They want a peace treaty. They want Trump administration to have diplomacy, have normalization with the North Korea, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in a way, I guess that they are Koreans, we have lived long enough under this condition. Koreans are somewhat practical. If you only look at the rhetoric, you may not be able to get a good, correct analysis. So they are, in a way, at this particular moment, most Koreans are still more focusing on Yoon's more personal wrongdoings and illegality. They're not necessarily, but the point that I'm making is, as a scholar and as activist and as critical analyst of geopolitics, what I'm saying is it is important to look at the broad geopolitical context, which led to this monstrous outcome. And we have to, without changing America's foreign policy, no matter how millions of Koreans protest, we're still going to be basically still continuing obstacle. That's why we need Koreans and Korean Americans. We all have to find, we have to cultivate our solidarity more than ever, global alliance.
Excellent. Simone, thank you so much. I kept you for too long, and I'm sorry. That was a really wonderful presentation, a great conversation. Thank you so much.